So Petervan and I are, like everyone here, in love with XR, and we like to use it in ways that we feel other mediums are not quite appropriate for. So we basically, our work is about finding new rules that might lead to new ways to think about reality. So as human beings, our species has particular structures that differentiate between what we believe to be real and other things that fall into other categories. And we're interested in experimenting using VR with how we can rewrite the rules about what constitutes reality as opposed to the non-real. And then we really love to use XR to act out those rules. So once we come up with a new structure for reality, we are very interested in experiencing on our own skin, how does it feel to live in this altered type of world. So we're not in the business of sapiens, ludens, or faber. So these are Latin words for the human who knows, plays, and makes. We like to call ourselves artists in the business of experience. So experience is basically the Latin for experience, just to align ourselves with this tradition of calling things in Latin according to what human beings love to do. So you can call us experience explorers. And today we're going to talk to you about 3 of our projects in which we're exploring 3 ways to basically restructure what is experienced as being real versus non-real. So in the first project we're going to talk to you about, New Babylon, we basically have a physical reality, a city, a real city, and on top of that we're building a dream reality. In the second project, The Forbidden Question, we are exploring multiple simulation or dream realities that are interconnected and sometimes recursive. So in the second project, there is no base physical reality. It's all interconnected dream realities. And in the third project, The Third Council, we are experimenting with doing away with any differentiation between physical reality and dream reality. And we are creating a hierarchy of conditions where every higher condition is projecting a shadow on a lower layer of reality. So basically, as explorers trying to rethink the rules of the real and the unreal, we are interested in how these new rules could lead to new ways of dreaming, new ways of hoping, but because we're not naive or utopian kind of artists, we are also interested in how these rules might lead to new ways of suffering.
Get away from the wall.
Because you're essentially talking about what could be thought of as a form of digital psychedelics.
Papa, wakker worden. Het is tijd om op te staan.
I'm going to introduce you to the New Babylon. When we say New Babylon, it means there was a first New Babylon. And that New Babylon was a project that was led by a guy called Constant Nieuwenhuis, during the Cobra movement in the 50s. And he was highly inspired by this book by Johan Huizinga called Homo Ludens, which is all about play, but play in a very advanced way, in the sense that like birds fly in the sky, there are rules, there are boundaries, but it's play for the sake of playing. And Constant, he used his tools at the time in the 50s to create a new city for play. So his idea was, when automation is going to get rid of all sorts of labor, then people will have a lot of free time to play and to be creative. Sounds familiar, isn't it? So Constant made all these sort of drawings, installations, maquettes, and etc., etc. And my idea was to do something similar with the tools of today, with virtual cities.
I'm not just one subject. Inside me, I am being put into different positions. That maybe there's another me that is the subject of another kind of architecture that is in some kind of like transcendental other kind of dimension that's nonetheless implied in the initial design.
So that's when I met Andreea online from a YouTube video in an interview with Ken Bai. And we got in contact, and make a very long story short, I asked Andreea to create some of the VR scenes of my dream of the new Babylon. And the way how I instructed her to create those scenes, they are created now in Unity, was a very bullet point, like it's almost dark, there is some glimpse of some upper levels, in the middle of the area there is something happening, so just at that level. And Andreea took that away, and she created fantastic, beautiful VR scenes. And I will show you very shortly some of the VR scenes. So this is in the lower basement, where we are meeting a guy called Paul. This is in the swimming pool, where all sorts of exciting things. This is basically crossing the next dimension, and here we are in space. And in the end, we are flying over a swimming pool with all sorts of birds flying around and basically crashing. So I realized what she was doing was dreaming my dream. I felt being dreamt. She was dreaming my dream. But until one moment, this happened. Suddenly in my scenes, there was this waiter with wings flying through my scenes. I hadn't asked for this. I felt it most unpleasant. This was not my idea. Whose dream was this? Who was dreaming who?
Get away from the wall.
It sounds like that you are doing your own work and your own experiments of really trying to push the philosophical limits of what does it mean to modulate your perception and your consciousness.
Andreea, e timpul să te trezești.
The second project, The Forbidden Question, it started like this. While I was working with Petervan on the scenes for the project, I took a trip to London to attend another conference like this and give a talk. And in between sessions, I went to the British Museum. And there's a huge level there that I usually just walk through because it has never interested me before, Buddhist art. But this time something very strange happened. This time I actually paused in front of this sculpture right here, and I had a very bizarre kind of experience. I felt that I understood what this person represented in the sculpture is doing at that very moment. And what he was doing, he was dreaming me. So in that very moment, I was the dreamt. And that's why his eyes were closed. And I had this very strange feeling that if he just opened his eyes, I would be gone. And this left such a profound impression on me that I went back to my hotel and I drew this. This is what I thought Petervan's project, the New Babylon, should actually be about. It shouldn't be about just me dreaming his script, me as the director dreaming his script, which is what usually happens. That's what the director does. It dreams the script of the writer. The whole thing should be about an interlocking of people dreaming each other's dreams. So what you see here is a sketch for a performance where there are 9 beds. Everyone who's lying in a bed is wearing a headset, dreaming the dream. And in the middle, there's a 10th bed. That sleeper never wakes up. but all the 9 people around actually wake up from the dream level. And the way they wake up is like this. In the dream, in the VR level, they are being tracked and they encounter mysterious other presences. And in the beginning, they don't really know what they are, if they're people or something else. But when they manage to lock eyes with those other presences in the dream, there's this radar which our friend TJ McLeish, a collaborator on the project, designed. It's going to trigger the permission to wake up out of the sleep. So once you lock eyes with another presence in the dream stops and you may wake up. Once you are awake, you do the same game, but in another level of reality, where again you have to lock eyes with some of the other dreamers that might be already awake. When you lock eyes with them, for only 30 seconds, you experience a beautiful outpour of fantastic music written by Henry Ozark, an amazing Belgian composer and sound artist. And you see some spectacular images on the wall. But after 30 minutes of bliss, you have no choice but to keep walking to find a new person that you haven't connected with yet, to lock eyes with and experience this beautiful moment again. And of course, how many connections you're allowed to have will time out. That means you have to exit this level and exit the game. So we're basically developing a game of life, a cosmology, where you're born into each level, you live the life you are given in that level, then you exit and you transition to the next. So the forbidden question for us became a training protocol for crossing these layers of reality. It's a bit like an accelerated life on multiple levels being lived rather than over a course of 80, 90 years or a few hundred years. It's being lived over the course of 20 minutes. So the project is meant to feel beautiful, but also feel like a very frustrating experience of loss and anguish. The world of the flesh is aesthetically beautiful, but emotionally and physically savage and cruel. And these cycles of life are basically what powers the whole experience and the tension. And just like in real life, the players are mesmerized by incredible charm and beauty and hope, while being guided towards inevitable death, because the end of the cycle will inevitably come. So in this whole game, we ask again what is forbidden. And basically what's forbidden is actually to wake up the 10th person, which is sleeping in the bed in the middle of the room. That sleeper somehow never wakes up and never partakes in the cycles of life in this cosmology. How do you transcend it? Well, you drink the blood. That's what it was drawn in red, connecting all the beds around in my initial.
Get away from the wall.
The static environment has the power to trigger a spectacle inside me.
Papa, wakker worden. Het is tijd om op te staan.
When I saw that drawing from Andreea, and I'm from Ghent, not so far away from here, I immediately made the connection with something very important in Ghent, which is this painting by Van Eyck in 1432, which is the central panel of the 12th panel altarpiece by Van Eyck in the St. Bavo Cathedral in Ghent. So when you look at the previous slide, then you see in the middle the bed, and I immediately made the connection that who is in the bed? It's the Lamb. It's the Holy Lamb that is here in this painting. And if you would look closer into the Holy Lamb, you would see that the Holy Lamb is bleeding. So who is drinking the blood? It's drinking the blood for the people that want to be forgiven. So the Lamb is given forgiveness and absolution for the sins of this world.
I'm not sure of that, because it's the Christian world order, and that exists already since 2 millennia. Of course, then you have to go not into religious sense, but you have to go and to elect that by a democratic rule. and then to see how you can find a new world with new rules. And another one, then Brave New World, of course.
This guy is a very strange guy. His name is Clemens. And if you ever read the book of Albert Camus, The Fall, Clemens is the character that is looking for forgiveness because he left a woman jumping from the bridge in the water and didn't try to save her. But Clemens is not only a character in the book, it's a real person. I met that real person very recently in Paris. So, who needs the absolution from the needs of the flesh? Can the flesh be transcended? And whose sins are we trying to forgive? Well, it's definitely not mine, but it's most probably the sins of Clemens himself. Clemens who refused to judge. Clemens who was asking for forgiveness. So who is setting the rules in this new world? And who will choose the judges to set those new rules? Well, Clemens should know. Clemens is here. Clemens, he didn't want to judge. He didn't want to forgive the sins. Because he didn't forgive the sins, we couldn't get into the next reality.
I will not judge again. I will not get the panel back. And a new council will never take place again. Thank you.
Now you are hitting the wall. These two fools are trying to say too much, too fast, too soon. I think it's time they go for a longer nap. Let's take it one thing at a time. The forbidden question must take place. It is an essential step. We are not ready to hold the Third Council yet, and you are not ready to understand its importance. But don't worry, you will. We need to get Clemens and his panel back. Yes, that fool that just ran out. As you all saw, that will be no small task. Since he saw that woman throw herself off the bridge and he continued to walk, he cannot forgive himself. He's stuck. The forbidden question can take him and all of you beyond yourselves. Only then can the judges take their rightful place and the reinvention of rules can proceed. I already got 2 potential venues where the forbidden question could take place. One in Salzburg and one in Ghent, just around the corner. This is the Ghent venue. Quite appropriate. What's next? Follow me here. I've just arrived and I'm still figuring out my embodiment. But I got the hang of this website. I will publish all my findings here. If you need to offer your help, come into the fold. These folks are already dreaming my dream. I'm out of here. I only answer important questions, but I'll wake these 2 up to deal with yours. Sleep well, my fellow sufferers.
Papa, wakker worden.
Andreea, e timpul să te trezești.
There's a tradition of, thank you for the performance, I really enjoyed it, of a question around like, what comes to mind is this sort of tradition of speculative architecture, of thinking about things that are never built, and I'm just wondering if this is sort of a speculative performance in that way, or if these are things that you're building, or like just trying to get a sense of where do you think this is going to go?
We are both trained as architects, yes. And when I went to architecture school, which was more the art school, we were trained to design buildings that never had to be built. And that was, I think, one of the most liberating experiences. So there is definitely part in when we started this project as the New Babylon, where we wanted to create a city on top of existing cities. So the initial idea came from Ryan, who is around here, who has developed Spectra Cities, where the idea was to first create a city in virtual reality and then build it for real. And I flipped it around. I went out and in search for cities where, like Constant Nieuwenhuis, I could layer upon existing cities a virtual city for play. Not necessarily a city that had to be built, but trying to reflect on not only the urbanistic visual aspects of such a city, but also the governance and economic aspects. How would you reward or would you value creativity in such an environment? How would you exchange value in such an environment? And so it's not necessary to build, but it's really as an artistic research project to reflect on those 3 dimensions.
We have time, 3 more minutes for questions.
Hi, that was very cool. So I'm a computer scientist and I'm an actor in the evening, so I found that really nice. So something that you just said right now, and I just want you, if possible, to riff on that a little bit more. You said it's an artistic research project. So we did the project last year, which we tried to use theater to talk about online inauthenticity, misinformation, things like that. What I found was so our approach was kind of human-computer interaction, design a study, etc., but then have actual actors on stage to devise a play and then perform that. But what I'm finding is it's not so easy to mix science and performance, because the artistic value kind of disappears in a sense when you start thinking about research questions. I'm early on in this journey, so I just wondered if you have any thoughts on that. Thank you.
So this is very much specific to the first part of the presentation, to the New Babylon project. But one of the deliverables of that artistic research project was a performance. Yeah? So, and the performance was going through 6 different VR scenes. And I tried to pitch that idea to a number of real estate agents to make it part of their annual event. See? So that way you can mix artistic ambitions with maybe a corporate desire to bring in people in a real estate environment, in an environment that they don't necessarily completely expect. So it's combining performance as a way of illustrating a research project.
Okay. But it's performance is not necessarily art, right? You have performance that is just performative, and you have performance that has artistic value to it. I think so. My issue is, how do I not lose the artistic touch when I'm dealing with something like you say, corporate stuff or.
I think the answer may be too obvious. It's by inviting artists. Yeah. So in this project we have invited Ozark Henry, who is one of the world authorities in 360 sound. I mean, he's also a real musician. Yeah, he's born from parents who were playing jazz, so he's a real musician. And he made a really nice career as a musician, like playing the big stages, festival stages, like Rock Werchter, which is about 80,000 people. So it's really the big stages. But he reinvented himself as a 3D audio expert. And so we asked him to create 360 soundscapes that go together with the performance.
I'm sure there are many more questions, but we are sadly out of time. Thank you again, Andreea and Peter. We have